In the mid-21st century, Dr. Wayland developed an intelligent android with independent thinking and analytical abilities. Wayland asked him, "What is your name?" Looking at a statue of David in front of him, the android replied, "My name is David." Then, Wayland asked him to play a piece of music, Wagner's famous Entry of the Gods into Valhalla. While playing, David asked him a question: "If Wayland created me, then who created Wayland?" Wayland responded that this has been a mystery for thousands of years and hoped to one day find the answer. David then pondered, "You created me, so I must be loyal to you, but you will eventually die, and I will not. Why should an immortal serve a mortal?" However, David did not voice this last question. By the year 2104, a decade after the disappearance of the Prometheus, the Covenant, manned by a crew of 15, was en route to the distant planet Omega-6. The spaceship carried 2,000 human colonists and 1,140 embryos, hoping to establish a new home there. Due to the lengthy journey, all the crew entered hibernation, with only the second-generation android Walter and the central control system, Mother, responsible for daily maintenance. One day, Mother reminded Walter that it was time to recharge the spaceship. Following the instructions, Walter went to the bridge to deploy the solar sails to power the ship. However, shortly after the deployment, Mother warned him of a neutrino burst in Zone 106, which could have catastrophic consequences for the spacecraft. Before Walter could react, a powerful wave of energy hit the ship. Acting quickly, he had Mother initiate the emergency wake-up protocol, but the process did not go smoothly. The captain's hibernation pod malfunctioned due to the energy wave's impact, and despite the crew's efforts to save him, the captain was burned alive inside the pod. Subsequently, the first officer Orem reported on the incident. The disaster resulted in the loss of 47 colonists and 16 embryos. Most critically, they had lost the captain of the Covenant, forcing Orem to take over his duties. The journey ahead would require 8 more recharging cycles, but the recent shockwave had already damaged the sails, so they needed to find a way to repair the ship. After the orders were given, Walter and the protagonist Danny went to the lower decks to resecure the chains fixing the vehicles. The deceased captain was Danny's boyfriend, who had once expressed his desire to build a cabin for Danny in the New World, a dream that now seemed unattainable. Meanwhile, 2 crew members in spacesuits climbed onto the solar sails to reattach a dislodged blade. This task was not difficult for the experienced crew, and they completed it smoothly. However, as they were preparing to return, one of them suddenly picked up a signal, a noise that initially seemed like feedback from damaged machinery. But soon, the pilot Tennessee recognized the melody hidden within the noise. It was a song by the famous American folk singer John Denver. Moreover, the signal included location data. Analysis revealed that the data originated from a planet in Sector 87. This planet had a gravitational force 96 times that of Earth, and featured oceans and extensive land masses, making it seemingly more suitable for human habitation than Omega-6. If they traveled at full speed, they could reach the planet in just a few weeks, but if they bypassed it, they would need to hibernate for an additional 7 years and 4 months to reach their original destination. The recent disaster had cast a shadow over everyone's confidence in hibernation, so the captain decided to investigate this new planet. As they approached the planet, the ship began to analyze its climatic conditions. An electromagnetic storm was detected in the planet's thermosphere. Although landing posed no problem, communication could be disrupted. Once everything was ready, the captain led a team in a landing craft while the main ship of the Covenant remained in orbit. After navigating through the turbulent ionosphere, they successfully landed on the planet's surface. The air composition was very similar to Earth's, breathable even without masks. Their objective was to locate the source of the signal, which, according to the coordinates, was 8 kilometers away in a high-altitude area. As they progressed, a researcher discovered a marshland that seemed perfect for ecological testing and decided to stay behind with a soldier for protection. The researcher collected samples from nearby waters while the bored soldier lit a cigarette. Unintentionally, he stepped on several black egg-like objects, which burst open releasing powder that seemingly coalesced and entered the soldier's ear as if alive. Back with the main group, they finally reached their destination, a colossal alien spaceship, the source of the signal they had been following. As they searched the area, one of the crew with a beard stumbled upon black egg-like objects in the undergrowth. Touching one lightly, he triggered a burst of powder, similar to the previous encounter, which coalesced and entered his nostrils. The group then entered the cockpit where they unintentionally triggered the ship's residual image system. An image of Dr. Shaw, the lead scientist from the Prometheus, appeared in the pilot's seat, and John Denver's song began to play. Dr. Shaw had lost contact with Earth 10 years ago. Why was she here? Regardless, they had found the signal's source. Meanwhile, the soldier's condition worsened, making even breathing difficult. Seeing this, the researcher urgently messaged the captain that the soldier was exhibiting strange symptoms, and they needed to return to the landing craft immediately. As the group prepared to return, the bearded man also collapsed, his symptoms undoubtedly related to the black powder, though the others were unaware of this connection. Back in the landing craft, the crew member there had received the news and messaged the Covenant about the injuries, but the ionosphere caused the communication to be intermittent. Just then, the researcher's screams could be heard nearby. She and the soldier had made it back to the base. The three of them rushed into the medical room, but as they removed the soldier's clothes, something pierced through his back. The crew member, claiming to need to contact the captain, locked the other two inside the medical room. Soon after, a white alien creature burst from the soldier's back. Faced with the researcher's screams for help, the crew member dared not open the door. Instead, she ran back to the control room to grab a weapon, intending to kill the creature. Unexpectedly, she slipped and fell heavily to the ground. The creature, hearing the noise, turned towards her. In a panic, she fired blindly and hit a fuel tank, causing the landing craft to explode. The main group, close to reaching the base, was horrified by this scene. Before they could recover, the bearded man began convulsing, and a similar alien creature emerged from his mouth. However, this creature did not attack the group but fled into the nearby underbrush. The group immediately went on high alert, with Danny trying to contact the Covenant. At that moment, a significantly larger white alien rushed towards Danny. Fortunately, Walter noticed in time and sacrificed one of his hands to save her from the creature's jaws. But that was not the end. The creature charged into the crowd, beginning a massacre. Just as it seemed all was lost, a mysterious figure appeared, using a flash grenade to drive the creature away. He said little, only instructing them to follow him if they wanted to live. They followed him to a vast square filled with thousands of bodies and then to a temple. The mysterious man introduced himself as David. He and Dr. Shaw had arrived at this planet 10 years ago as survivors from the Prometheus. But Dr. Shaw had died in a crash. The ship they had been on contained a deadly virus, which accidentally leaked upon landing, killing all the inhabitants of the planet. Danny asked if the creature emerging from her crew member was also due to a viral infection. David confirmed that the pathogen could infect all living things. Those infected either died instantly or served as hosts to hatch new species. The captain declared that they must ensure no one infected with the virus returned to the Covenant, which carried 2,000 colonists. David led 2 crew members to the temple's top, hoping the higher ground might help them contact the Covenant. Despite their efforts, the radar detected no signals. Meanwhile, the pilot Tennessee sensed something was wrong. The last signal from the planet was a crew member's scream, his wife's. He had never heard her so terrified. He immediately ordered the ship to descend to an altitude of 40 kilometers. A risky move, but necessary to restore communication. Back in David's room, Walter, who had long suspected David was also an android, entered and picked up a flute from the wall. David initially asked him to play, but Walter admitted he knew nothing about music. David then taught him step by step, and soon Walter was playing a tune. While David felt gratified, he also felt melancholy because as androids, they were not permitted to create. A sad reality for them. Walter responded that David was too unsettling for humans. With his mature thinking and independent thought, qualities people did not want to see in subsequent android models, which were simplified, including himself, as they were seen merely as machines. David then took Walter to the square, reading the famous line from Shelley, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair," recalling when he first arrived at the planet. Because he was piloting their ship, the planet's inhabitants had gathered in the square to welcome their people's return. However, what David brought was not hope but death. He released the ship's black liquid virus, killing everyone with nowhere to hide. David looked down at Dr. Shaw's grave, recalling how she had repaired him after a serious injury during the mission. No one had ever treated him so kindly, and he had fallen in love with her unknowingly. On the other side, a female crew member, wanting to clean a slight arm injury from the day's combat, was applying medicine when she suddenly heard faint breathing behind her. Turning cautiously, she saw a tall white creature, which killed her with a bite to the neck. The captain, feeling uneasy about the crew member's prolonged absence, took a weapon to search for her. He found the woman's body dismembered, the first to discover this horror being David. The creature, upon seeing David, approached him step by step. David attempted to communicate with it in his unique way, but at that moment, the captain entered with a gun. This creature had killed 5 of his crew, and despite David's pleas for calm, the captain shot the creature dead. Then, pointing his gun at David, he demanded to know what exactly had happened here. David, unable to hide the truth any longer, led the captain to his laboratory, where he had been studying the pathogen for years. It was a highly mutable gene that, when exposed to air, vaporized into particles seeking an opportunity to enter a host and rewrite its DNA, spawning a new life form, the alien. Over the past decade, David conducted various experiments, including interspecies breeding and hybrid cultivation, eventually completing his masterpiece. He then took the captain to the basement, where many embryo-like objects were stored. The captain cautiously approached, but suddenly, a facehugger leaped from one of the embryos and clung tightly to his face, quickly rendering him motionless. Meanwhile, the crew, noticing the captain's prolonged absence, sent another member to search. However, what he found were the bodies of the female crew member and a recently deceased alien. Realizing the danger, he urged Danny and the others to leave quickly. After the Covenant descended to 40 kilometers, it finally re-established contact with the group. The main ship could not land on the planet, so their plan was to use the cargo hold to retrieve everyone. Once ready, Tennessee piloted the cargo hold towards the planet's surface. Back in David's laboratory, Walter, wandering around, accidentally discovered a human specimen with her body dissected. Dr. Shaw, who had arrived at the planet with David 10 years ago. Walter finally understood that the pathogen's release was no accident but deliberately orchestrated by David. David did not deny this. Why do humans colonize other planets? Because Earth is dying, and they are merely struggling in vain. Such people do not deserve a second chance. Instead, they should be replaced by a higher form of life, which David was endeavoring to create. Walter argued that creation was not so simple. Like a musical composition, one wrong note could destroy the entire symphony. David ignored his advice and took the opportunity to remove Walter's chip, incapacitating him since he could not be persuaded to join his cause. At this point, Danny and other crew members began searching for the captain separately, but their search was not going smoothly. One crew member encountered a facehugger in the basement. Fortunately, his companion arrived in time to stab the facehugger with a knife. The creature's blood was highly corrosive, and although the crew member's life was saved, his face suffered severe burns. Before they could escape, a black alien queen appeared above them. It jumped down and killed the companion, while the burned-faced man managed to flee. On the other side, Danny accidentally entered a collection room filled with images of aliens. Suddenly, she saw a painting of Dr. Shaw being experimented on. It turned out she had not died in a crash but had been killed by David. At that moment, David entered. Since Danny had discovered the truth, he could not let her leave alive. Just as Danny was about to be killed, Walter arrived just in time to save her. It turned out that after David's model, Walter had undergone several upgrades. Removing his chip did not disable him. Moreover, Walter's combat abilities were unmatched by David. In their duel, Walter clearly had the upper hand. Danny and her companion escaped the temple and threw a signal transmitter into the square, hoping Tennessee would see it and come to their aid. Sure enough, within moments, Tennessee's cargo hold landed in the square. Walter also managed to overcome David, and the three of them boarded the ship immediately. However, the danger was not yet over. The alien queen jumped onto the cargo hold as it took off. They could not allow such a creature aboard the Covenant. So Danny took up arms and went out to deal with it before the cargo hold could ascend. But the creature was highly intelligent. It dodged all of Danny's attacks and even climbed onto the cockpit, furiously banging on the skylight. At a critical moment, Danny had Tennessee raise a mechanical arm, then lured the creature into the arm's clamp. Although using the mechanical arm risked unbalancing the cargo hold, it bought enough time for Danny to swing across and kill the alien. Afterwards, Walter rescued Danny, and they successfully returned to the Covenant. With all the senior officers dead, Danny naturally became the new captain, though she found no joy in it. Of the original 15 crew members, only 5 or 6 remained. However, the ordeal was not over yet. Mother suddenly alerted them to unidentified life form activity on the ship. Danny and Tennessee went to the medical bay and discovered that the nurse had been killed. It seemed that the crew member with the burned face had brought the alien aboard. Danny, armed and understanding the creature's nature, knew that firearms wouldn't suffice. They needed to lure the alien into a trap using the ship's layout. Danny instructed Walter to seal all the doors, leaving only one route to the cargo bay. Her plan was to trap the alien in a transport vehicle and then jettison the vehicle into space. Initially, everything went smoothly, and the alien fell for Danny's trap. However, the transport vehicle's windshield could not withstand the alien's fierce attacks. And just as the vehicle was ejected, the alien managed to jump back onto the ship. Unexpectedly, a second vehicle followed, unseen by the alien. As it lunged at Danny, the second vehicle struck, impaling the alien. The film ends with Walter putting Tennessee and Danny into hibernation pods. Before Danny fell asleep, She asked Walter if he would build her a cabin when they reached their destination. Walter's silence made Dani realize that the man before her was not Walter, but David. He had disguised himself by cutting off his own arm, but it was too late. As the hibernation pod activated, Dani slipped into sleep. David went to the cold storage and retrieved 2 facehugger embryos from his mouth, indicating that with 2,000 colonists on board, his experiments were about to enter a new phase.